All right, guys, thank you very much for coming back on the mic with JB Banda. And today I've got a special guest. It's Darren Mangan. How are you doing, bro? How is it going?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, nah, it's a pleasure to have you, man. Well, like for those that don't know Darren, me and Darren go way back.
Yeah.
And this guy is an inspirational man. He's just he's really an inspirational, he's a motivational guy. And that's why I wanted him on the podcast. His journey and his story that he's gonna share with us today is very inspiring, and I think it will help a lot of people out there. So yeah, just a brief intro. Darren used to be amateur boxing, and we're just going to talk about his journey in the amateur boxing and nearly going professional as well. So you talk to you about that. So yeah, bro, talk to us, man. Obviously, a lot of people don't know you. Just explain to them where you're from, and yeah, let's just jump in with your boxing journey, bro.
Geez, after that introduction, I feel like it might be a letdown, but I'll give it a go anyways. Yeah, I grew up in Castlebar in County Mayo, and I got into boxing at the age of 10. It was an old football coach of mine, Dennis Ahern. He just kind of pulled me aside and told me be down at the gym tomorrow night for 7:30. And ever since that, I kind of consumed all my teenage years, and suppose at the start of my early 20s. Moved to Donegal then when I was 12, and yeah, just boxed week in, week out as an amateur, and went to America when I was 16 with a group of Irish, a group of Irish lads boxing out in San Francisco. And once I got out there, I just had the taste for America, and I really enjoyed it out there. And came home, and when I was 19, I actually relocated out to New York, and
Wow.
I signed professional out there.
No way, that's amazing. So talk to us. Obviously, your amateur, like you said, started boxing at 10, and then
Yeah.
your coach was it just told you, listen, be at the gym. When that happened, like what was going through your head? I mean, why did he ask you to go to the gym?
As a young fella, I definitely had a lot of pumped up energy, and I suppose maybe football was one outlet for it. And he probably saw that I could probably do it somewhere to be during the week as well. And obviously, then he would have known my dad and a few other family members of mine who were all kind of into boxing. And I was into boxing myself, but I'd never really gave much thought to it. But when he said it to me that time, I just thought, fuck yeah, I'll give it a go. And I went home that night, and I was asking my dad, I remember, how do I bandage my hands and all? Like, I've seen them doing it in Rocky and all, so he was showing me because he had boxed a bit himself. Like, so yeah, I went up to the club then. I can't remember my first night there, to be honest, because you have so many nights during your amateur career where you're there 3 or 4 days a week. So sometimes, apologies, second. Sometimes you're there 3 or 4 days a week. Some days you're there mornings, and I was at it anyways. And when I moved to Donegal, I took up boxing with Letterkenny, and John Elliott was a caretaker in my secondary school, and I used to be harassing him. I swear, John, we go out and do a morning session. John, come on, but like, any chance you could take me for a session at lunch and all? And I'd say he just thought I was mad, but I did. I fell in love with it,
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And what did your parents think? Obviously, being young, and they thought, you went to them. Listen, my coach has said I should go to the boxing and try out boxing. Like, what did they think?
I'd say my dad probably knew it was coming in hindsight, because I was always kind of surrounded by boxers, and with my family doing it, with him doing it. And when I told him, like, oh, what do you think? I'm sure he would have had a conversation with my old football coach Dennis behind my back. Like, obviously you only kind of cop onto that when you're a bit older, like, but so he wasn't surprised. And my mum just thought it was good. It was giving me somewhere to be during the week, as opposed to one night of football a week and a match on a Sunday. So no, they were happy. They obviously, when you get into it at the start, you're just getting in for the enjoyment, to learn a new skill, even more so for the social side of it. So you're not hanging around the streets, or you're not out late, and it's giving you that discipline more than, like, you're looking at it thinking, I'm going to be a good boxer, a bad boxer,
Wow, that's amazing. And obviously, talk to us about your first sort of amateur fight that you had. At what age were you when you got into the ring? Can you remember that? Like, if you can.
I can. I was 10 years of age, and you're actually meant to be 11 before you can fight. But my coach Dennis says, "You've been at this a month. Come on, we'll take you back." And there's a load of lads went in for the Mayo Championships in the Peter Callahan Centre in Westport. And it's funny just thinking back and like I was down and I weighed in and all, and they let me weigh in at the boy one, which is 11, and there was no one in the weight, but there was a fella at the year above me, boy two, and he was my weight. So Dennis said, "Oh, we'll put on the fight. Like it won't be for the Mayo Championship, Britain, but would you be interested in taking the fight at the start of the card?" Like, and Dave said, "Yeah." So I remember I went in and you know what I mean. You're only at it a month. If you're at it for a month, you don't really know what you're at.
Yeah.
And I remember the other fella like knew what he was doing kind of a bit more, and I lost anyways. And I just remember I loved the experience though. Like, and after that, once I got the taste for it, I was like, "Oh no, I have to get a win now." So
Yeah.
I started going obviously all the time then. And in my first year, I fought I think 16 or 17 times as an amateur, which is crazy. Like, you know, because
Wow.
when I was in America, I would talk to these lads. They were saying, "Oh, I'm gonna go pro after 11 or 12 amateur fights," and I was just thinking, "Fucking hell, that's mental."
So you fought 17, and I'm sure was you like what was your record with that, with all those fights in amateur?
I think I won. I did. I went well after I lost that one. I think I won. End up winning 15, and I lost another one after that. But yeah. So I was handy enough at it when I was that young, and I suppose I was just disciplined and dedicated, and I probably had that respect for my coach Dennis as well. That I would be terrified to miss training because
Yeah.
the good thing about amateur sport is, and I only kind of realized this the more and more I'm away from it, is these coaches are giving up their lives. They're going out and they're doing, like, I see it doing it myself now. They're doing 11 or 12-hour days on the tools, could be in a hospital, and they're there every evening to coach us, to give us somewhere to be, you know?
Yeah.
So, but when you're that young, you're just, "Oh, I want to train, I want to win." You're just constantly thinking about the outcome. "Oh, I don't want to lose. I'm afraid to lose." Like, but
Yeah.
no, like it's unbelievable because I'm obviously working full time and I'm doing a full time degree, which is online now, which is a bit difficult. And I think whenever I get free time, I just don't want to do anything. And I'm
Yeah.
like, there's there like they're like right there, they're down the gym every night. They're there before work. You know, it's unbelievable. Like,
So at what age did you sort of know, like, obviously you've had all these fights. At what age did you think, "Oh wow, I'm actually good at it"? Or what age did the coach, at what stage did the coaches tell you that, "Listen, Darren, you could be something great here. Like you're really, really good, and I think you should think about doing this full time"? Like when was that? Like how many amateur fights were you down the line?
I'd say about 80. I was 80 odd amateur fights down the line, and again, like it just was giving me somewhere to be at the start, and I was doing well at tournaments and all the rest. But I wasn't representing Ireland at any of these big major worlds or anything like that. But I did start to think when I was 16 or something, I had a little bit more drive in me than other people. And when I went out to America with that squad, I just kind of thought, yeah, you know, I could be all right at this, and I went home and kind of had set my mind on it from 16, 17, 18 until I eventually went back to New York at 19.
Wow. So talk to us about San Francisco. Like, what was there? Why did you guys have to go there? Was it just like, was it a few fights you were doing there? Was it like a training camp? What was that?
I suppose it was a bit of both. There was a bit of training camp at the start, and then we were fighting like a Californian select. So there is two men that lived out there they'd be from my dad's parish in Mayo, and they were kind of arranging a team to come out from Ireland, from all different parts of Ireland, like to come out and box against this Californian team. And we went out for I think 10 or 12 days. I can't mind rightly, like, and we done a training camp for a week, and then we fought, and I won out there. And I kind of got talking to a few people in and around the pro scene out there, and like I'd never really wanted to be an Olympian or anything like that. Like that was never my scope of what I wanted to do. I
Yeah.
always kind of like I grew up watching Eric Morales on TV, and all the, I suppose, you know, it sounds funny, like the glitz and the glam and all that, and I just
Yeah.
loved it, the pro side of it. And talking to people out there, they all kind of said, when you're older, if that's what you want to be as a pro boxer, you have to kind of immerse yourself in that culture and where's the best place to do it. And so I would have had conversations after San Francisco with people, but I came home anyways for a couple of years. I finished my leaving cert. I was still boxing down in my local amateur club, and I went away working. I'd got a scholarship to go to Jordanstown when I was 18, and I just felt I wasn't really mature enough to go to college that time. And my dad says, well, you're not going to sit around the house. You're not busy enough with amateur boxing. So I'll give you a job out with me in Sweden. And I don't know, did he maybe think I was probably done with it at that stage anyways. But I went out to Sweden and worked with him for a while, came over and back competing. I competed a couple of times in Sweden as well.
Wow.
A lot of people probably don't know. And I decided then I wanted to go out and try boxing in New York.
So talk to us, obviously you're back and forth, you're juggling school, you're juggling, boxing, you're working in between that. Dad hits you with, oh, come to Sweden with me. Like, what's going through your mind there? Are you thinking, oh, I'm gonna just allow, like, were you sort of ready to give up, or what was the initial? Were you just thinking, I'm gonna go to Sweden, make a little bit of money that's gonna help me to get up to America? Was that the plan, or?
That was it. Yeah. And initially it was just go out and do 6 weeks out in Sweden. That's what I said to him. I'll do 6 weeks. Like, I'm not working in construction. I'm not built for that. Like, and I done 6 weeks out with him, and then he said to me, look, you probably won't get this opportunity to make good money like this again. You're not going to be busy for the next couple of months at home. I did only go out there to save up for a car so that I could have my own car and I could throw the gear bag in the car and I could head to wherever I wanted training, like. And I ended up staying the year, obviously, going over and back.
Wow. So how old were you at this age when Dad is telling you, listen, we're going, let's do Sweden, come and work with me or work for me? Like, what age are you at this?
I'm 18. Yeah, it wasn't long turned 18, and I think that once I had said that I didn't feel like I was ready to go to college, which in hindsight I look back, I think, fuck, I was mature enough, because how many people do you know that just say, oh, all my mates are going to Galway, all my mates are going to Dublin, Liverpool, wherever. And I just felt, if I'm not going to go to college, I need to be busy, and I'm not going to be busy enough with the amateur boxing. And he just said to me, yeah, come out here, so, because you're not going to be sitting at home. You have to, if you're not you're not in school anymore, you're not going to college, you're not going to be busy enough with amateur boxing, come out here and work, and we'll see how we go. And that was it, really, like.
So you went to Sweden, and whereabouts did you guys go in Sweden? Was you guys like, which part of Sweden did you go?
We went to
Stockholm.
Sorry?
Was it Stockholm or?
No, we went to Sundsvall. It's about 4 hours north of Stockholm, and it's mad, like, because I got there and it was like -20. There's fucking snow. I swear to God, like, and I thought, oh my God, I'm like, what am I doing here, like? And so I landed there. We landed in Stockholm, got a 4-hour train north, and it was just, they were building a bridge. So at the start, like, I was just kind of doing the stores for lads that were getting tools out, and then eventually I was getting fucking bored of that. And he said to me, right, I'll throw you in along with these carpenters, and they'll try and teach you a thing or two. And that was it. I was just laboring to them for a while, trying to learn bits and pieces, like. But when you're that age, like, and you're only doing it as well to make a few pounds. You don't really see yourself like, oh well, I'm not going to really be here for long. I see myself maybe going at the boxing full time, or something like that.
Yeah.
Then I'd say they were just thinking, this young fella, like, my God.
Yeah. Now, and how did it come about for you to obviously box there as well? Like you said, you had a few fights in Sweden. Like, how did that come about?
I was still keeping active, so I would fly home for certain championships in Ireland, and obviously I wasn't going to be over and back enough, with work to compete in Ireland and be sharp going to championships, or even, like, gives you, the more active you are, the more natural you are in your weight and sharper and stuff like that, and naturally fit. So I found a gym out there to get into. And do you remember Tyson Fury fought a Swedish guy a couple of fights ago?
Yes.
Yeah, and he got the bag cut.
Yes, that was just before the Wilder fight. Yes, I remember. I watched that fight, actually.
Yeah.
And everybody thought it was going to lose.
Yeah, I trained in the same gym as that lad. So
no way. Wow.
I just said to them, is there any chance to get a couple of fights here? And I didn't want to enter like nationals or anything like that, just to keep me sharp for going home and entering competitions in Ireland and stuff like that. And they did, yeah. So I think it's 4 or 5 fights out there.
Wow.
But it's definitely a lot higher standard in Ireland, obviously, in England and places like that. Like so, but it kept me sharp enough, anyways.
That's good. That's good. So then you said you were there for what, a year, and then you decided to come back?
Yeah, I was there for a year, and I kind of felt I was there long enough now, and I wasn't really getting anything else from it. I had a few pounds saved, and I'd always wanted to go to New York, and just watching things like John Duddy and stuff like that on TV, and whenever I did have eyes towards being a pro, I thought, yeah, feck it, I'll go out there. A lad I worked with, one of the carpenters, said that he had a sister living in New York, and that if I wanted, I could go out and stay with them for as long as I needed. They were brilliant to me, like, and I could, try my hand at boxing out there. So I finished up working in Sweden, had a few pounds saved, went out to New York on just a holiday visa. I think it
Yeah.
was like a 2 week turnaround I had booked for, and I was like, if I find it shit after 2 weeks, I'll just come home.
Go home.
But
Yeah.
I went out then and met this family in Queens, and they were amazing to me. Like, honest to God, anything I wanted, they helped me with. They showed me how to get around, get into New York and into Manhattan. If I looked up gyms I would potentially like to train in, they would show me how to get there, and I ended up staying for 3 months. I changed my flight and all and stayed out there the 3 months. And when I came back, then I thought, yeah, I have to get serious about this. I loved it. Like, so I just would kind of go into random gyms in Manhattan, and I'd have a gear bag with me, and I'd just say, oh, is there any chance I could train here for the day, or is there any chance I get a bit of sparring and stuff like that? Like, and I made conversations with people then and made a few connections about maybe turning pro. And this fella advised, he says, come over and back for a couple of months, and he says, take a couple of fights out here as an amateur, and we'll see about turning you pro then. So
Wow.
I did. Home again. I know it's probably hard to keep up, but I went home again and packed my bags, and I decided, yeah. So I went over. I was going over and back for about a year before I came back on a visa then properly.
So 21, you're heading to America on a visa properly.
Yeah, earlier than that, I'd say I was just turning 20, I think, yeah, because I'd
Yeah.
been in Sweden for a year, 18 to 19, yeah, and I'd done the kind of year going over and back, yeah. So I was probably about 20 when I was there, early 20s when I was there, kind of full time.
Wow. And then obviously you took the advice from the guy you met in the gym in New York. Did you take a couple of fights before obviously deciding that you know what, I'm gonna sign here and become pro? Like, and what were those fights, and how were the fights that you took?
Yeah, I had five or six fights in New York. They were good. Like, I just thought the in America, like, they're all just kind of gearing towards being a pro. It has changed a bit over there now since the old Irish head coach Billy Walsh has gone out there. They've kind of like veered a bit more towards the amateur program a little bit. But I had a lot more experience than a lot of the guys I was fighting. But they all looked like pros. They didn't really they weren't light in their feet and stuff like that. And they used to call Irish people or English people boxing. They're all that European style. So I won all my fights out in New York, actually, thankfully. And I had made a connection with this man named Tony McLaughlin. Tony McLaughlin was he used to be John Duddy's manager out there, and he didn't manage me or anything like that, but he was always very good to me, and he'd always point me in the right direction. And he said that he knew a coach in Manhattan that had trained 7 or 8 world champions. He had
Wow.
trained. Do you remember Mike Perez? There was a few Irish pros
Yeah.
that came to Cuba. He trained all them lads in Cork. He had trained Peter Quillen, who was a world champion. And he
Wow.
says, if you want, he says, I'll bring him up, and you can, at least then you'll do a little while in a pro gym, and you'll say, this is for me or it's not for me. So he hooked me up with Colin Morgan then.
Wow. So obviously you hook up with Colin Morgan. You've had about 5 or 6 fights in New York, and just the fights that you had there, like obviously coming from the Irish fighting scene, like what would you say the difference is, and where would you say you were pushed to your hardest? In fact, all the three, I mean, you boxed in Sweden, you boxed here in Ireland, and then boxing in New York. Like, which one would you say had the best kind of guys or competition? Which one did you think, whoa, these guys are out here, this is good stuff?
There's probably two answers to that. In amateur boxing, Ireland, unbelievable talent. Like, places like Belfast where you have Holy Trinity, you have gyms in Dublin that are like, like I remember Fibsbury used to have a few good lads when I was coming up as an amateur. Mayo, you've Gisala down the real west coast of Ireland. Like they were coughing up 10 or 11 Irish champions a year at one stage. So I just thought Ireland was just, for amateur boxing, that old computer scoring style was just so sharp. You had to be on it all the time. Every fight was a chess match, even if it was just a local tournament. Sweden, I found they're very fit, but I don't think they had that schooling as such that you would have had in Ireland. And in America, it's obviously a pro style. They're all very flat-footed. They're all leaning in maybe 2 or 3 shots, but they're all hard punches. Like, they're leaning in with their punches. So in terms of a pro style, America was challenging. Wow. I found that I was kind of at the end of a 3-rounder in America. I was obviously still trying to adapt more to the pro style, where I was like keeping more flat-footed and moving more head movement. I was probably more tired after the 3-rounders in America, because you're on your toes all the time, and that's obviously where they make their gravy. Then as you go into the 6 or 7-rounders, their legs are solid. Like, if you run around like that all the time, you're just gonna get worn down. Like, yeah. But yeah, that's probably 2 answers really for you.
Wow, man, amazing points. And so tell us, you met the guy obviously that you were told to go and meet. What's the story there? What did he ask you to do more fights, or was it straightforward? He just wanted to sign you?
No, he just wanted to sign me after a couple of weeks training there. He says, look, I'm not going to waste your time. You're no point you wasting my time. He says, I've had hundreds of people come in here and say, I want to be a world champion. I want to be a pro. And then they fuck off pretty much. And I went to him and I said, no, this is what I want to do. I feel really driven about it. I feel really passionate about it. I see myself being out here. I think there's a really good market there in the East Coast for an Irish fighter to come along. Since John Duddy retired, and I says, but I would need to be out here all the time, and I would need to be active as well. So we kind of shook hands in it, and we had an agreement that he would coach me, and he would, like, I wouldn't have to be signed to a promoter at the start, which would give me more flexibility to maybe jump on a Lou DiBella show or even a small hall show in New York, So we kind of said about that was the plan. Went home, got my visa sorted, and as I said, when I was in my 20s, then flew out to New York full time to fight pro.
Wow! So talk to us. You come home. You're telling your dad. You're telling your family. Listen, it's happening. I'm signing. I'm gonna be pro. What's the morale in the house? I'm sure dad is proud as anything. And talk to us through that.
Yeah, they're all buzzing, to be fair, like, because they'd seen how hard I'd worked, and obviously I didn't want it to be just aimless in either. Like, and I think they were more proud that I was really driven to do something. And obviously then they were like, well, you have to be looked after out there, and make sure this, and you're looked after in this way and that way. And I had said, listen, I have it all sorted. Like, when you're that age and you're that driven, they were good because they let me make mistakes in life, and they also like drove me on to do my best at things. They would never say you're going to be a world champion, but they would say, if you decide to go at this, just give it your all. So so they did, and I obviously went out then and started boxing out in New York full time, kind of.
Wow. And obviously you're doing this, you're young, you're in your 20s, and most people would have like a coach with them throughout their whole journey or a team behind them when they're signing pro and all the rest of it. But I mean, who was dealing with all that red tape, or the terms and conditions, all the T's and C's? Like, did you know, like, was paperwork, like, did you know what you were doing at that age? Did you have anybody, guiding you through that? Like, talk to us how you got around that.
Yeah. Like, it's naively, of course, like, I probably didn't have the right people looking after me, or looking at the contracts. Any contract I was sent, I had taken to an attorney, and they kind of talked me through, this is what this entails. You're not really, it's pretty low key, they all kind of said. But I probably didn't use my old amateur trainers enough, or even my parents as such either. But I was just, to be honest, I was just so driven, and I was like, oh, I just want to do it. And you're naive too, and think, oh, I just want to do it, I'm going to do it. And you then obviously fall into the pitfalls that come along with that.
And do you think you'd have done that differently if given the time now, would you have done that differently, looking back?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. In hindsight, yeah, I definitely. One of my trainers did say to me, he says, "You're young, like," and he said, "You're still growing and all." He said, "You could do another couple of years in Ireland as an amateur," but I just saw kind of at that time, the recession was obviously over in Ireland, but if you weren't in college, there was nothing really for you to do. There was no work in Dublin. There was no work really in Belfast in construction and stuff, and that's kind of all I'd known how to do since I turned 18. And I was getting this opportunity to go to America, and I just thought, if I immerse myself in that culture, I immerse myself in my training, I will be all right, and I'll work it
Yeah.
out the contract was a 3-year contract. I was looking at it saying I'll be 23 when I come out of that contract. They've guaranteed me 12 fights on the contract. That yeah, I'll be all right. And there was also a stipend that I would be looked after in terms of like accommodation and stuff like that too. So everything looked well.
Wow. So talk to us. You're flying to America. You've signed on the dotted line. They've guaranteed you all this accommodation, everything. How does the training, like, how did you get into the training, and what was your first fight like? Talk to us through that.
Yeah, I initially had a bit of a nightmare when I went out there because I'd signed for 2 fights and they just fell through, which happens. And anyone listen to this that's a pro probably will tell you it happens at least every fight I'm meant to have, it falls through.
Yeah.
But I found myself kind of struggling a lot when I went out there, and back home people obviously you put out this the good parts that's going well out there, because you do want people to be proud of you, and more so you want to do well yourself, like. And when I got out there, just things didn't go well from the start, between fights falling through, and then I struggled to pin down accommodation. But then eventually I kind of found my rhythm with it. I had got I rented a room in a flat, and I had a date for September, but then around August things were tits up for me a bit over there. I
Talk
ended
to
up
us through that. Talk to us through that situation. What do you mean by things went tits up? Like, explain to us that situation. Take us back.
like I had kind of went out there with these ideals that I would be in the gym all the time training, and I would have this trainer working with me all the time. And he was probably just like, "Oh, we've loads of times. This guy's young. He's gonna have a couple of fights, whatever. He'll work his way into it." But I just kind of wanted to be in the gym all the time. And then the people that were meant to be looking after my accommodation and stuff weren't looking after it, and I found myself working all the time to just try and pay for a fucking room I was living in. And back home, like, I wouldn't really be telling people this. Like, even my parents, I would say, "No, it's all right. I've just taken up a job for a couple of hours here and there. Keep me busy." And come the August time, I just couldn't afford to pay the accommodation anymore, and I
Where
found
were you?
myself
Like, what were you doing there? Like, obviously, you're in your head. You went there to be pro, to train
yeah.
all the time, like you said. They said they were gonna look after you in the contract. They started slacking on that on their end, and then you had to get a job. So, what job were you doing? What did you have to do to sort of support yourself?
I was working as a demo laborer, like for 10 hours a day, and then I was trying to train twice a day on top of that.
Wow.
And it was it was definitely tough now, to be honest. And yeah, but about August time, I had sorted out I had lost my accommodation,
Mm.
and I had a few friends from Ireland that were living in or that were over there in a J1, and they were brilliant to me. Like, they would say, "Oh, you can come and stay with us for a couple of weeks so you get sorted." But then eventually, you're meant to be out there and you're kind of meant to have it together a bit. And I ended up sleeping on the gym I was training in on a yoga mat on the floor most nights. But
Wow.
people don't know this stuff back home, and then again, you can only people can only judge on what you're putting out there as well,
Yeah,
But
yeah,
so I definitely learned like a new term, like a new understanding of the term being homeless, because when I was younger, I thought homeless person someone lying on the street, but
yeah,
that's not the case at all. There's plenty of people living in temporary accommodation, and technically they're homeless, and that's just
yeah.
the way it was. And I got to a month, 4 weeks before my fight. I was doing a little bit of PTing on the side. When I say PTing, it was just holding pads for white collar people, and this woman had asked me, she was like, "Oh, are you about on Sunday to do a pad session with me?" And I said, yeah, no problem. Everyone was heading away for a long weekend, and I went in and I opened up the gym. Sure, I was fucking staying there, and it was like, and I'd done a
So how
training
did you
session.
get? Sorry, how did you get to stay in the gym? Like, what? How did you get that? Did you speak to the guys in the gym to say, "Listen, I've got nowhere to stay. Can I stay here?" Or were you just like just staying there after everybody had gone? Like, how did you manage that?
No, to be fair, like the guys were one of the owners of the gym said I could come and stay with him. He lived kind of 2 or 3 hours, well, 2.5 hours outside of Manhattan, and
Yeah,
I was just like, oh, that's such a commute every day and stuff. And he said, well, you can stay in the gym if you want. Like, it's, keep in mind, it's not it was a fancy enough gym. It wasn't,
yeah,
it
no,
wasn't,
100%.
you were still like, at 6 a.m, if you weren't up ready to go out the door, people were like trying to get into the gym, and then you can't be there like lying there like you have a head on. You looking like you were sleeping there, like.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And how? Obviously, you don't have anywhere to go. At this point, you're staying in the gym. The people that were meant to look after you, though, don't they know what's going on? Like, what are they saying at this point?
the communication had kind of like wavered off a bit. Not really. I think they knew I was having issues with accommodation and stuff like that, but that was it. That was probably the be all end all of it. And when I went to my trainer and I kind of explained what's going on, it didn't really have any sympathy either. It's like, oh well, this is just the way you have to be. When it's coming up, you're coming up, and I started to agree with him. I thought, yeah, he is right. I could use this as motivation and as fire to propel myself.
Yeah,
But the reality of it is, then it's just very hard to spin all them plates. So as I said, I offered to train this woman on a Sunday, and she gave me a $100 tip, and I
wow.
remember like she said to me, and then she walked away, and I was going to wash. They used to have an agreement with the building next door that you could do your laundry and wash towels and all for free. So I was just about to go do the laundry, and I copped on. She gave me $100, and I went, "Oh fuck, gee, she mustn't have meant to give me that." So I ran after, and I said to her, sorry, I think you gave me 100 by mistake, because the price of a session might have only been 70
Yeah,
for the gym, so I was getting a lot less than that out of it.
yeah,
And he said, no, you were good enough to come and train me today, and you're good enough to come and train me today, and like not many other people were, and everyone's away down to the coast for the long weekend. And I just started crying. I was mad, like saying it back. Like I got very upset, and she was like, "What's wrong with you?"
yeah.
I just said, "I'm having a really hard time. 1 month off my pro debut. My family's coming out to see me, all the rest." And I said, I'm just struggling at the minute, like." And she was like, "Oh my god!" She was like, "Come with me," and she took me for food, and she gave me a place
Wow,
to stay. Yeah.
wow, that's amazing. Are you
So
still in touch with that lady?
yeah, we do keep in touch. Yeah, but not as much as we should. She's obviously very busy, and I'm
Yeah,
busy. Uh, Hopefully, I was hoping to go out and see her now before this pandemic started. So when
yeah,
things clear up again, I might get out there. Yeah,
that's amazing. So this lady takes you in,
yeah,
gives you food. You start living there, and how take us back to the training. So then you've got a month before your pro debut,
yeah.
and
I
you
had a
start.
month. I had a month before my pro debut. My management team had called a meeting to see how things were going. My trainer showed up. He was saying, "I have a bad back at the minute. I'm a bit injured." I was like, "Yeah, fair enough." Like, my I had just said, "Guys, something, we need to kind of come to a common ground here, because I am going to be the best I can be during this fight." And they were a bit dismissive, because they were like, "It's only your pro debut. It's only your it's only your first fight. You'll be all right. You'll be matched okay and stuff like that." And but I didn't see it like that at all. I went, "Well, if we don't get it right in the first one, it might just roll on and roll on and roll on." But we kind of came to an agreement. I got my strength and conditioning sorted. I was kind of doing my own nutrition at that time. Terrible. My idea of nutrition back then was burn off more than you're putting in, and I had no idea about fueling yourself right or anything like that. I couldn't afford to pay for a nutritionist in New York.
Hmm,
Imagine one session with a nutritionist in New York might be $300 or $400.
wow.
And so I just kind of went old school and how I might have lost weight as an amateur. And boxers are obviously notorious for their poor. Well, they used to be notorious for their poor nutrition, like, wearing loads of bin bags to sweat it out
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And I managed to make it to my fight, my pro debut. I had a couple of changes of opponents again, but this time I had my amateur coach flying out from Ireland. I had uh, my family, my mum and dad. I had
Wow.
relatives down from other areas of New York. I had lots of friends met in New York, and yeah, my last month was just training and selling tickets. Like, I'd go out to Queens, and Mayo might be playing in the All Ireland semi final, and I'd bring 50 tickets with me, and I'd say, "Look, I'm from Mayo, half Mayo, half Donegal, and I'd say I'm fighting in Brooklyn in a couple of weeks' time. I'd love to support him." People buy
Yeah.
tickets like when they wake up the next day and they might say, "What the fuck is this ticket for?" Like, but uh, loads of people bought tickets. So I thought then, like, the managers were obviously like, "Well, he hasn't even had a fight yet, and
Yeah.
he's able to sell a few tickets out here, So I managed to get a fight, and I was probably matched hard for my pro debut because the guy I was fighting had won a Golden Glove, a New York State Golden Gloves, and they're kind of people that you fight a bit further down the line. But
Wow.
what happened? I had a fella that I was meant to fight, and he pulled out, and the guy that your man was meant to fight in his pro debut pulled out. So we just kind of came to an agreement. We would take the fight, and in hindsight, stupid, like, but when you've had so many dates pull out, and you you kind of make decisions too in the expectations of other people, which you shouldn't do, and you kind of learned a lot more about that as I went on in
Yeah.
my career. But I decided to take the fight anyways. My trainer thought I'd be all right. We watched a little bit of footage of him, and he was a southpaw. I hadn't sparred one southpaw, but I had also sparred a lot better lads. I had sparred Peter Quillen, who was the WBO middleweight world champion for dozens of rounds. I had sparred a couple of prospects out in New York. I had sparred a US alternative for the Olympics, Wesley Ferreira. He was very good.
Wow.
I just felt whoever I fight anyways, I should be all right.
Yeah. So how was it then you got into that fight? You've obviously been training, you've been sparring a lot. Like, how
Yeah.
was the fight? How did it go in Brooklyn?
I won on unanimous decision. I think at that stage I was just so fired up, but I was also very emotionally drained. I won the fight, but it wasn't like a great performance. It wasn't as good as it could have been. But in your amateur debut, there's a lot of stuff going on, and anyone you'll talk to that's been a pro, they're just say this, they want to try and enjoy their amateur debut, but things are so novelty. Like, the gloves are a lot tighter. You're not wearing a top, obviously, and you're fighting. I was fighting 4 rounds for the first time, but I was definitely fit enough, and I cruised to a points decision victory. But I found it an awkward fight, anyways. So yeah, that's all I could do. I was just happy to get away with the win and spend a weekend with my family and friends.
Wow. So first win under the belt. What's happening now? Like, talk us through what obviously how did you have all the 12 fights, or how did it go? How did it play out in terms of your contract?
No, I after that I said I kind of told my family and friends, my family when they came over, like, all that had been going on after the fight, like, and they were saying, "Get your bags and get out of here."
Yeah.
And I said, "No, no, listen, I can do this. I can do this." And they were like, "Well, come home for a week." And they paid for me my parents paid for me to fly back out, and
Yeah.
you don't want that either, because it's my journey and my dream and my goal that I'm striving for. But you do need help. Everyone needs help along the way.
Yeah.
And if someone tells you, "Oh, I've done it on my own and all," get out of here. I'd love to meet them.
It's
I'd
true.
love to see how honest they're being.
It's true. You can't
But
you can't do you can never get to the top without help. You need other people to get you to the top. That's for sure.
and and even people just think, help is something like financially, or help can be ringing your friend up and saying, "Geez, I need a vent here."
Yeah.
So stays in this as this recluse and just gets everywhere. Well, they're not going to enjoy the process anyways, even if they do reach where they want to go to.
Mm.
But I came home for just to relax and to kind of get my feet underneath me a bit. But it's weird looking back. I felt final with it. I felt like oh my God, the idea of doing 12 fights, like that's what I was thinking around that time. I was just
Yeah.
emotionally drained. But I went back and I was signed to fight again around late December, and I was on the way to work one day, and I was getting picked up in New Jersey. It was at the time. I was staying with a friend in New Jersey in Hoboken, and he drove through an intersection, and we got into a car accident on the way into work,
Oh no.
and he had to pull out of the next fight, and it just the whole thing was just stressful. Then I started to feel real stress and real kind of mental health problems in a sense. Like I started to feel like I shouldn't feel this pressure at 19 or 20, like,
Yeah.
obviously, you're realistic in that things are going to be challenging and stuff, but after that, like I went to a medic, like you used to go to like a now doc in America, and they said that you have a couple of cracked ribs, and the airbag went out on the passenger door, and it just almost like volleyed off my leg, and it felt like I had a dead leg, and within a week my entire left leg was black,
Wow.
and no one was hurt. There was a couple of us, and like no one was really badly hurt, and we were obviously bar a few bumps and bruises, but I just decided then I need to go home for a few months and see what's going to happen. Are we going to come to an agreement? Is being at home maybe the best thing for me, seeing as I'm so young? I've had a fight here, things aren't really working out, and try and figure out maybe a way to get out of my contract back home. And like obviously this is going to be new to a lot of people listening to it, like, because I think only maybe my family and my partner might know all these ins and outs of it. But I went home, yeah, and I just decided to reset. And Peter O'Donnell he's a president of Irish boxing in Donegal. He's really well known, and he was brilliant to me too. He's really supportive. He says being home might be the best thing for you. He said, there's great opportunities starting to come up in Ireland. He said it could be the right place for you to be for a couple of years until you're mature enough and you're ready to go back out. So I rested up for a couple of weeks, enjoyed a couple of nights out. I used to drink back. I don't drink at all now. Like I haven't drank in 5 years or something like that.
I
But
know that is crazy.
yeah, I had a couple of nights out, and then come January, Peter put me on to John Breen in Belfast.
Wow.
So
And how did that so you obviously, did you get out of the contract then? Did you manage to kind of get out of it and then come to Belfast to train over here, or what was the story there, or were you still signed up in New York?
they were trying to make me. I was still signed up in New York at that stage, and I said, "Look, I am willing to train at home and fly out and fight in New York. But I'm just not willing to live in New York now.
Yeah.
Just wasn't attainable to focus on my boxing as much as I would like, and also work full time. And like obviously every pro boxer starting out kind of does it, but around that time I was just struggling to spin all the plates, and I was kind of starting to feel a lot more isolated living out there too. Even though I had my friends and had a really good support network in terms of the Irish that are out there, like lots of them are very good to me, and I'm still in touch with them today. But yeah, I just had said that's what I'm willing to do, and they were just like, well, no, we want you to, if you want to fight in Ireland, you have to buy out your contract. And it was all kind of like a load of political kind of stuff came into it then.
Yeah.
But I spoke to different attorneys involved with boxing in Ireland and stuff like that, and different members of the BUI, which is the Boxing Union of Ireland, and they had kind of given me feedback on how to get out of it. And mainly it was not be offered a fight for 12 months was one of the ways I could get out of it. So I just trained in Ireland, and I wasn't offered a fight for 12 months. And in that stage, I would be up and down to Belfast. I would be working away. I was back working in Sweden the odd couple of weeks here and there. So it's
Wow.
not the same and stuff, but I was just sick of it. I was just trying to find that fire to go back at it. And people would be asking you then, oh, when are you, what's going on with the boxing and stuff? And then you kind of feel yourself protecting yourself as well, say that, oh, just things didn't work out in New York, because you don't want to talk bad about people. And even now, like I'm sure they have another perspective of of this everything that went on out there. That's fair enough. Like, but yeah, I just kind of find myself saying, "Oh, I'm just waiting to see what fights come up and stuff like that." And
So
eventually, then I got the contract.
what went on, like what was going on through your head? Like you're saying, like it's a tough thing when you're trying to get, where obviously you told everybody back home, I'm going to New York, I'm gonna be pro, and then you coming back, and then everybody, like you're saying, asking you all these questions. How did you deal with that mentally? Did you find there were days where you were down and you're kind of obviously young lad, like trying to
Yeah,
figure it out? Like how were you dealing with it? How were you processing that? Because at the minute there's a lot obviously going on in the
yeah.
world, mental health, depression. Like, did you get any of that anxiety, all that? Like, talk to us through that and how you got out of it.
Yeah, I went through an awful time with my own mental health then in that period in between leaving New York and signing to fight again, which was about a year and a half period. I just had really poor self-esteem. I was so hypercritical of myself. I thought, Jesus, like you believe. I kind of felt silly for believing in myself. I obviously had the self-doubt. I then had a lot of avoidance towards the sport of boxing. I thought, Jesus, like it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, and I did struggle obviously with anxiety then too. I just I almost tried to avoid boxing because I didn't want to fail again. I felt
Yeah,
like, even though I was 1-0 as a pro, I was 21, 22. Like, I felt like I used to say to myself, oh, if only I had my life to live again. And that statement alone at 22 years of age is just ridiculous.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but I after a while I went and I talked to a counselor, and it was the
Wow.
best thing ever. You know, so he gave me a really good bit of advice, and it stayed with me. And sometimes I say it to people as well. He said to me, things are always bigger in your own head. He said, right now you're at home, you're not enjoying your boxing. He said, it doesn't mean you hate boxing. It's just you're not enjoying everything that's going on at the minute. You're worried about the expectations of others. You're worried about the expectation you have in yourself. He said, it's very hard for you to put out fires around the place and then
Yeah.
start to enjoy anything in life, you
Mm.
know? So he he gave me some really good feedback, and
I think
I started.
that's very
Uh,
important. You touched on a great point there about what the therapist spoke to you about, in terms of people putting so much pressure on themselves because they're taking on other people's expectation, and
yeah,
they're trying, and then that kind of overwhelms them, and on top of their own expectation you just feel like you're drowning in this pressure. And I feel like that's a very good point because most people do that. Like we all do that. We try and say, oh, people will be thinking, why is he not fighting? Why is he not doing this? Or why am I not doing that? And then you're thinking, well, why did he not work out for me? What do I need to do? So you find yourself, you're anxious, and
yeah,
like there's a lot going on. And I think that alone, when people need to learn to sort of let go of what
yeah,
other people are thinking and kind of just focus on their own kind of journey and just be like, listen, and this is my journey. If it works out, it does. If it doesn't, at least I'm doing something. I'm going for it, or I'm trying to
yeah,
figure it out. And I think we do, as people, do put a lot of pressure on ourselves. So that was a great point that you said there, which is really.
yeah, yeah. It's well, and it is easier said than done too. Like it is easier saying that, and I'm thankfully in a place in my life now where I'm just content with what I'm doing, and I'm really passionate about what I'm doing. But had I not maybe gone through all that, I may have gone through life being more worried about what other people are thinking, and and letting it affect me massively. You have to obviously care about what some people in your life maybe are thinking, and take into account their perspective of a situation you might present to them. But no, and it is always bigger in your own head. I was worried about what is this person thinking, what's that person thinking, am I good enough? And it's just you're on this mental spiral, and I
Yeah.
was just struggling to stop it, you know. And yeah, got to the point that I felt I don't really see. I don't say this lightly, and I never thankfully got to the place where I thought I really can't go on any longer. But I equally knew I need to stop this slide fast. And I sat down and talked to my mum and my dad and all, and they were brilliant. And people are brilliant too.
Mm.
And sometimes we're bad to we're all kind of thinking, oh, everyone's gonna have this opinion, and we start to think for people, you
Yeah.
know, you
True.
know, it's
True.
I always say to people like, if they come to me with a problem and it's about this person might think this, I'm saying you're thinking for that person.
That's
As let's they come to you with that opinion, don't think for them. You know, because it's
no,
hard to think
absolutely,
for yourself a lot.
absolutely right.
You know?
Yeah,
But no, I went to went for counselling, and it helped me. Like he taught me lots of different self-regulatory stuff I could be doing. Like, you know, just if I start to feel that anxiety and frustration take over, you know, just different things like focusing on my breathing and stuff like that. Because what you think is, I'll avoid boxing, but and I won't have that anxiety. But the thing is, it then says, all right, boxing's gone, but now I'm gonna like creep into somewhere else in your life, and
yeah,
it could be relationship, it could be job, it could be
yeah.
whatever. No, so
Absolutely. So how was that conversation with mom and dad? Like, obviously they're seeing their son, going through all this, and I'm sure at that point you're probably just trying to keep yourself to yourself. But parents always know. Like, I know my
yeah,
mom knows when something is up. Like, you can't really
yeah.
try and stay away. Like, how were they kind of trying to get you out of that headspace and help you out? How was mom and dad through that?
It sounds funny because there's always like a divide between young people and old people nowadays, and you know, young people tend to think, oh, that's an old school way of thinking,
Yeah,
and people seem to think, oh, they know it all. Young people are know-it-alls. But my dad said a point to me, and he said, you know, sometimes you just have to suffer through things and just get on with it. And
yeah,
he said, you know, you've put yourself out there, you know, going to New York and trying to be a better person. And you should feel sad because it didn't work out. But he said, you shouldn't feel guilty about it.
yeah,
And he said, sometimes you just have to suffer through it and put one foot in front of the other and see where it takes you. And
yeah,
between talking to the counselor and talking to them, and I just kind of felt, yeah, you know, I'm ready to start getting back into boxing.
yeah. And obviously that's when you came to Belfast and you were training down here. And
Yeah.
how was that once you're back in the ring? How was that?
Uh, I when I first got back into it, to be honest, it was just grueling, you know. But you have to embrace that part of it too. I was just kind of going up, and you're not sharp because you're out the ring so long, and then you've also been battling your mental health. So I was just trying to get back in the ring and get active, get the weight down. Thankfully, I didn't balloon massively in weight, like you see some fighters do when they're out of the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just John Breen was amazing to me, and I lived with Eamon McGee. He's a brilliant book. I don't know if you've seen it.
No.
I must send it to you. He's a very good book, and he is an unbelievable story too. Like he fought Ricky Hatton and he won a world title and stuff. And I was staying
Wow.
with him for Doyle, and they were brilliant to me. They just said focus on your boxing, get back into it, and like I in my training camp for my first fight back, I was pretty bad now, to be fair, but I was enjoying being back. You know, it
Yeah.
sounds mad. I was enjoying being back in that environment in a sweaty gym, you know, where you're just toughing it out a bit, you know.
And how many
And
fights did you have down here? Like, obviously, once you got back into it, how many fights did you have?
I didn't have any. The last time I stepped in the ring was New York. So
Okay.
I went to have a fresh set of medicals because I was very lethargic all the time after training, and I was having little bouts of dizziness, and I was like, I must be getting rattled and sparring and stuff like that, like, and that might maybe what's doing it. But I started to feel really, really weak all the time. Like I had no energy, and John Breen says, you know, you've a couple of weeks before this fight, you know, just go, and you need to get your medicals done anyways. Go and get your medicals done, and we'll see what's the story like. And it's probably nothing like. And if we don't think you're ready for this fight, we'll just move the date until January. But I felt really protected with John Breen and Eamon McGee. I didn't feel that level of protection since I left the amateur scene.
Yeah.
And like, you know, whilst in New York they say we've people coming and we've tickets sold, you need a fight. They didn't
Yeah.
care. 100 tickets sold, and they had said doesn't matter, refund them. But if you aren't right or you're not sharp enough to fight, doesn't matter if it's just a journeyman. This is your pro career. You can get hurt in there. And they said get your medals done first of all, and we'll see how it's going.
So it's good to
So
see the difference there from the coach's side of things because they were looking after your well-being, whereas in America they were kind of just money driven and just thinking, you know, we've already got this sold, you can't turn back now, trying to get in there.
And they have a vetted interest in America too, with different things like, you know, they've invested in a visa, you know, and they probably have these ideas of a young Irish fighter. It's a, you know, I probably sold them the dream as well, in a sense. That's why things aren't like always one sided, as you know, as we believe. But I went then and I went for my medicals and I went for a stress test, and I failed the stress test with my heart. And then I had to go for a load of different scans, echoes and stuff. And I was told I had a congenital AV block in the heart.
Wow.
And they were trying to differentiate whether it was, I can't remember exactly now, was it a grade 3, which is, or a grade 1, which is, you know, one that you could potentially compete with, or grade 2, whether you would eventually need a pacemaker. Because obviously with an AV block, it's like the electric rhythm in your heart isn't working properly. So there's a chance you could, it'd be like pulling the socket out of a wall.
Wow.
And it was just an absolute knockout blow. And I went, well, what do I do now? What do I do now? And the specialist said to me, there's, you know, I can't sign your medicals off for you. Like, you know, there's no way.
Yeah.
Like you know, you have these problems. Like you have a heart problem. You know,
Yeah.
we don't know the extent of it yet, and the chances are that, you know, you could be in the ring fighting, the next thing you drop dead. And do I have to look your parents in the eyes and say, oh, you know, I signed him off on that? And back then you're just like, oh, I'll just, that's on me, you sign it, you know, you're not thinking rationally, because you're the worst thing you can do in sport is be an athlete. I learned this now studying sports psychology, is be an athlete first and a person second. You have to be a person first and an athlete second.
Wow.
But back then I wasn't, and I had maybe a romanticized idea of like, I've gotten over this really tough battle with mental health. I've gotten over stuff in New York. I've learned lots from it, and I'm back. That didn't keep me down. So I'm back and I'm ready to go again. I'll get this fight over me, and we'll build at home and build me up again. And obviously then I failed the medical, and I went and got a second opinion. 1 second, sorry. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went and got a second opinion then, and they says, no, you have to go and beat a blocker straight away, and we have to keep an eye on this, because we don't want to put a pacemaker in while you're so young and you're active too, but we equally need to try and see, we need to study this more over like a year. So that was put me out of the ring for a year again, you know. So then all of a sudden, you know, you've signed pro at 19, 20, you fought at 20, and you're 22 now, and you're like, I'm 2 years out of the ring, and I'm going to be another year out of the ring. And I realized then it was over. Like it was over. Like,
Wow. That's and how did you deal with that? Obviously, just realizing this is it. Like, where was your head at now? Like, what's going through your mind? Like, okay, my career as a boxer here is done.
Done. Yeah. It just completely done, because boxing was what got me through my first real battle with mental health, was boxing, getting back there and getting in there, and you know, that's what's getting me through this. And then when boxing was taken away, I had a complete identity crisis, because I thought, you come from small towns in Mayo or Donegal, and you get known as kind of, they paint you with that label, in the sense that, oh, you know, the boxer from the town, or you know, whether you're massively successful or not, that does become part of your identity.
Yeah.
And I worked on anything else. I had just only really worked on that part of me, that was the athlete, that was the wanted to be a successful pro. And when that was taken away from me, I just went into, I suppose, free fall, in a sense. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I couldn't find motivation to do anything. I couldn't find inspiration to do anything. My dad would say to me, when you come back out and work? And then I was thinking, no, that's me signing off on boxing. I'll never, you know. So I tried, obviously, to get my medicals and all sorted, but no, it was done. So I then had to work on this new version of myself and who I wanted to be. And again, like, you know, I was start to do things like going out more, and be something I wasn't really, you know. And
Yeah.
you start hanging out. But then that are probably the same people that, when you're doing well, are giving out about you, but when you're on a bar stool beside them, you're the best in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So where are you now? Like obviously, what like you where are you now in terms of your career and what you want to do? That dream in boxing didn't work out. Like
Yeah.
where is Darren now?
Well, after that, I met my partner not long after that, and she was finishing up at uni, Leah, obviously, like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she was finishing up at uni, and I was equally wanted a fresh start. I just felt I couldn't really uh, I couldn't get a fresh break being around, being at home, and I needed to kind of go away and just figure out what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. And I knew that drive was still in there, and that like boxing was boxing, and it was a sport I loved doing and all the rest. But I equally I was good at boxing, and I was driven at boxing because I'm a driven person.
Yeah.
So I sat with it for a while, and we both decided to go out to Australia
Yeah.
for a year. That's obviously where I met you, and she's friends with your missus, so that's how
Yeah.
we met.
Yeah.
And I loved Australia, but I never took it as more than it was. That it was going to be a year and a half out in the sun, few holidays here and there, working in construction. But my cogs were constantly turning when I was out there, because I was saying to myself all the time, this is good and all, but the years can fly in if you're only staying here for the money, or you're just staying here for the sun.
Yeah.
If you're a driven person, you need to start exploring other avenues. And when I realized I probably wasn't good enough at construction, I still work in construction today, and I love it, but I love it because I can take it for what it is, that it's just a job that gets me from A to B. Same
Yeah.
as when I was, but in Australia, I kind of felt I was having to try and be more than I was, and that I was having to try and be a good carpenter or whatever I was put at. And when I realized I wasn't really going to be that, and I didn't want to be that anyways, and I was only kind of staying there for the money, I realized that the next step for me is to go back to education, and it's something I always wanted to do anyways. Even when I made that decision at 18,
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to go back into it.
Wow. So what are you doing now in education? What are you studying?
I am studying sports psychology,
Amazing.
and yeah, so it's obviously you're learning. I learn a lot about. Uh, I know a lot about sports psychology because I've inherited it, because it was a really key part I was fascinated by when I was competing.
Yeah.
But when you're learning about it and stuff, sometimes I'm like, oh, so that's what I was going through at that time. So you like
Yeah,
it's
so
a
it all makes sense now when you look back on your journey as a, an
like
athlete, and now you're studying that, mental sports psychology. It kind of adds, it comes together, so at that stage, which is good in a way for you studying that, sports psychology, because it means like whenever you get to qualify and you start speaking to all these athletes, you'll be talking from experience because you've been through, as a pro fighter, you've been through that journey where, being told bad news, how to react, and like you were saying there, you gave us a great point about the athlete in you telling the doctor, just sign me off, instead of
yeah
being the person first to think, listen, I got to think of my health. But you were just straight in there because you didn't have that knowledge. But now,
yeah.
with the knowledge you have now, you'd probably be looking at that in a different light.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, but it's to be a boxer and to be a world champion, or to have any real success with it, you do need to be a bit mad. You do like to, so things like saying like just sign that off and all. Like
Yeah.
now I'm a lot more civilized. Like, but when you're in that wee bubble, and you're a fighter and you want to go somewhere, this is where you want to go, and you know how to go there. Yeah, you do have to think a bit mad, and it was like, so I do have a good laugh at it. But no, I came back, and I knew what I wanted to do. Like, some people give me like reasonable advice. It says go back and become a nurse, or go back and become a teacher. You're good with children, and you'll have some of the people I still look up to are teachers I've had or coaches I've had, and people have said go back into do a sports degree and go back and give back to amateur boxing,
Yeah.
uh, which I would love to, and someday I will. But they are the most selfless people out there, and at
Yeah.
the minute, I think I am. spinning enough places, I keep saying, to have the dedication and the discipline to be that amateur coach.
Nah,
But
amazing.
yeah.
Nah, amazing. What I was gonna say, how long have you got left on your degree?
So the thing is, with my degree is I have 2 years left of my bachelor's. I've two done. I then have to do a master's, and if I want to become a sports psychologist, I will have to do a PhD, or I will have to do a HCPC, which
Wow.
gets you Asian. But I'm really open-minded with my degree, and maybe being closed-minded in sport as an athlete has taught me this. So when I first went back to do sports psychology, I went back because I had that interest in it. And in Ireland, you can't study to be a sports psychologist. You can do a psychologist degree, or you can do courses in sports science or
You can't
performance,
specify, yeah.
but you can't specify. And that's why I'm in Liverpool. Again, I applied to going to New York and being in the best place I can be. Here, I'll get placements with Everton Football Club or Liverpool. I'm a United fan, like, but
Yeah.
so I'm take the Liverpool one. But you know what I mean. And I'm just enjoying every step of it. And if I'm doing a module and it could be on, communication or working, doesn't always have to be athletes. You can go into be an exercise psychologist too, and advising people on the benefits of the health benefits mentally of doing sport and exercise. And I might go down that road, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna definitely stick the flag in and say I'm going to be a sports psychologist for an elite team. And it's important to
Yeah.
be open-minded, but it's also
Absolutely. No,
important to kind of know an
that's
idea.
that that is amazing. Like, obviously, like, what, like, great story, mate. Like, I just can't thank you enough for jumping on, because there's a lot of people out there. We all have dreams as kids and as growing
Yeah,
up, and we want to pursue those dreams. And then obviously when you get, given bad news like that, and it's a blow, to change your mindset and to kind of refigure yourself out. You went traveling, you're trying to find yourself, and now
yeah,
you've got your mind set on this degree that you're doing, sports psychology, which is amazing. Just try and advise people out there who are probably going to be listening to this. Just like, talk to them in, like, how important it is to sort of not to be so, like, one dimensional, to be flexible, to say when something happens, I can switch into something else. Like,
yeah.
just talk to us a little bit. Like, what would you advise somebody listening to this and they're driven about their dreams? Like, what would you tell them?
You're living life with the blinders on like a horse, if that's the way you're living. And it's good. It is important to have an idea where you're going, but then you're not giving your chance to maybe enjoy something else that might pop up along the way. And a lot of the times, whether I didn't reach my dream of being a pro world champion, but when I look back, the best memories I have are jumping in the back of a van and going to a tournament in Mayo or Sligo. Or you care less about the outcome of your dreams anyways as you get older.
Yeah.
How many pro world champions do I know personally that they don't really care about it. The best memories are the nights that they met up with their friends afterwards or going to the gym. And I think if you're really close-minded and you don't look at the other stuff in life, you might get to your dream and say, well, that was a waste of 10 or 15 years, you
Yeah.
know? So it's
It's the
always,
journey. Yeah.
you can get to your dream and realize it's not where you wanted to be, and that's okay too. But you definitely have to be open-minded in life.
Nah, 100%, mate. I just want to say a big thank you. Thank you so much for jumping on. And I'm honored to have you on the podcast. I'll
No,
probably bring you back on once you start, you know, doing your doing your degree, and once you start, working in the industry, because I'm sure you're
and
gonna have great stories for us. But it's always a pleasure to have you on. And to everybody out there that's listening, thank you so much for jumping on to listen to this podcast. Make sure you subscribe to all the platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple iPods there, Google Podcast as well. We're on that there. So make sure share this, like it, comment, and give us some feedbacks here. Would love to see what we can do different. And I just want to say again, a big thank you to my guest today, Darren. Mate, you've been a legend, and you just
cheers.
keep on inspiring. And 100%. I just want to say thank you so much, man.
No worries. You've a good guest on tomorrow too, Sean.
I know that's gonna be
Yeah,
amazing. I know I can't wait for people to listen to that podcast. And he's from County Mayo as well, so that's gonna
yeah.
be That's gonna
Great
be
guy.
good to listen to. Nah, definitely. Nah, thank you so much, Darren, for this podcast, and we'll speak to you soon.